Today we're making my Brie and Cranberry stuffed dough balls. These are perfect for Thanksgiving and Christmas and are made by stuffing fluffy Tangzhong dinner rolls with chunks of Brie and cranberry sauce. You can serve these dough balls as an appetizer, a snack, or as a side dish to go with your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. They're super easy to make and are brushed with a thyme butter as soon as they come out of the oven for a glossy finish and extra flavour. Here's how we make them. First we need to make a Tangzhong. This is a Japanese bread making technique and will give our dough balls a softer and fluffier texture. So to make it, we add 20 grams of strong white bread flour into a small saucepan with 40 grams of whole milk and 40 grams of water. We give it a quick whisk to combine, then cook over a low heat, stirring constantly until we get a thick paste. Sort of like when you make a roux. The Tangzhong will only take 3 or 4 minutes to cook. And when it's ready, it should look something like this. Once it's cooked, we're going to transfer the Tangzhong to a bowl and let it cool to room temperature. Now to make the dough. So we're going to add 380 grams of strong white bread flour into the bowl of a stand mixer with 15 grams of caster sugar, 8 grams of fine sea salt, 1 teaspoon of skim milk powder, 7 grams of instant or fast action yeast, and the cooled down Tangzhong. We're also going to add in a large egg, which should weigh around 50 grams out of the shell. Next we've got 85 grams of whole milk and 85 grams of water, and I've warmed it in the microwave to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This gets added to the flour, and then we're going to use the dough hook to mix it on a medium speed until we get a smooth dough. This will take around 5 minutes. Next we're going to gradually mix in 40 grams of unsalted butter that's been softened at room temperature. Make sure to let each piece mix in fully before adding in more. Then once all the butter's been added in, we're going to continue mixing the dough until it passes the Windowpane Test. This will take around 5 to 10 minutes. The Windowpane Test is a way to test the gluten development in dough, and to do it you take a small amount of dough, stretch it between your fingers, and if it stretches thin enough that you can see through it, the dough's ready. If it tears, the dough will need more mixing. When your dough's ready, it will also look smooth like this. So now we're going to cover the bowl up and let it brew at room temperature until it's doubled in size. This will take between an hour and an hour and a half. In the meantime, we can prepare the filling for our dough balls. So we'll need a 200 gram block of Brie and 100 grams of cranberry sauce. The cranberry sauce is ready to go, but the Brie needs to be chopped into 12 chunks. You can use homemade or shop bought cranberry sauce. If you want to make your own, I'll leave my recipe linked in the video description. If you've got some Brie left like I did, you can just divide it between the rest of the chunks. Then we can just pop the cheese back into the fridge until our dough's ready. So after around an hour, my dough was ready and it looked like this. So the next step is to knock it back, transfer it to a lightly floured work surface, and divide it into 12 equal pieces. Each piece of dough should weigh around 60 grams. I'd recommend using a bench scraper to cut the dough. You'll also need to grease and line a 9 by 13 inch baking tin. Now to shape and stuff the dough. To do this, we take a piece of dough and flatten it slightly using our hands. We add half a teaspoon of cranberry sauce into the middle, then place a chunk of Brie on top. Next we fold the sides of the dough over the cheese so that the filling is completely covered, and then flip the ball of dough upside down and then use our hands to shape it into a ball. Then as we shape the dough balls, we're going to place them into the lined tin so they're sitting in 4 rows of 3. They need to be evenly spaced apart as well. Also make sure not to shape the dough balls too tightly, as this could make the cheese tear through the top of the dough. So once all the dough balls are shaped, we're going to cover the tin up and let them prove at room temperature for between 45 minutes and an hour. In the meantime, you'll need to preheat an oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit. Once proved, they should have almost doubled in size and they'll just be touching. Next, we're going to brush the proved dough balls with an egg wash that's made with an egg and a teaspoon of milk. Then we're going to sprinkle each one with a good amount of sesame seeds. This is optional though, so feel free to leave them out if you prefer. Now we're going to bake the dough balls in the preheated oven for 25 to 30 minutes until they're well risen and a deep golden brown. Then as soon as they come out of the oven, we're going to brush the tops of the dough balls with 25 grams of melted unsalted butter. I've added 2 teaspoons of finely chopped thyme in the butter as well, but feel free to leave this out if you'd prefer. The melted butter gives the dough balls a glossy finish, and the thyme's in there for some extra flavour. Now we just need to let the dough balls cool for around 10 minutes and then we can serve them. If you serve them straight away, they'll be too hot to pick up and the inside will still be a bit doughy. Once they've cooled slightly, run a palette knife around the edge of the dough balls to release them from the tin and then serve. They're best served when they're still a bit warm and the cheese is melty. If you wanted to make these dough balls ahead of time, they'll need to be stored in the fridge and they can be reheated in the oven or in a microwave. I'll leave a full guide to reheating them in the video description. And that's how to make my Brie and Cranberry stuffed dough balls. The full written recipe and loads more festive recipes can be found on my blog, saltbuttersmoke.com. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another recipe.